Hi everybody, Tom Gile at the Gile Group. Today is Friday, December 11th. I am bringing you the latest Gile report. 2020 was unprecedented in many ways, but some of the positive aspects of 2020, definitely the housing market, both here locally in Portland and across the nation. With such a strong market in 2020, I think a question in a lot of people's minds are we headed towards a housing bubble in 2021? Let's take a look at the local market and national markets, see what the trends are, and also see what the experts have to say about where we've been and where we're headed for 2021. Starting out, as we often do here, let's take a look at the leading indicators for Portland. We look at new listings, we look at lockbox opens. Looking at the listings, as you can see, it's definitely following the seasonal slowdown that we see this time of year, but we are above where we're at last year by about 31%. We definitely had an uptick last week after a slow week the week before. That slow week the week before has to do with Thanksgiving, and you can see that also over here in lockbox opens. So this graph actually comes from the multiple listing service, and it has about a 1 week lag. So that tail down there at the very end of the graph is the week of Thanksgiving, so as people were staying at home as opposed to going out looking at houses. Pending sales also following that seasonality that we normally see this time of year, but you can see that red line is up about 34% above where we're at last year. So we're continuing to see strong pending sales here and sales activity in the Portland metro area. And pricing, take a look at where it's at. We're hovering around that $500,000 mark last week. The median price in Portland was $481,000, and so we're running anywhere between about $481 and $500, and it's been pretty steady there since about June as it started picking up. So let's back up a little bit. We're going to take a look at some national pricing and inventory trends here. And these are some long-term graphs starting at 2010. You can see that home prices through time here just had this steady uptick throughout the years here. There is a little bit of a downturn as we were in, I guess, what we'd call the Great Recession and the housing crisis around 2010. But we're seeing steady growth since then. And inventory, as you can see, continues to trend down. I think one point worth noting here is look where the inventory was when the market crashed and was the housing market was struggling. We had very high inventory. We're now at a point here where, I'll give you an example. I looked in Tualatin last week. We had 0.2 months worth of inventory. So we had just a little over a week's worth of inventory in Tualatin, which is the lowest number I've ever seen. Looking at housing pricing trends, the average appreciation through time from 2000 till now is like 3.8%. This graph does a good job of showing what that average looks like and then what the actual was. We can see that dip starting about 2008 and it's climbing back out of it about 2012 as we hit the housing crisis and recession. The important thing to note out of this graph is where we're at for 2020 relative to the last several years. We've seen steady growth the last several years, but 2020 we're seeing a big uptick in prices across the U.S. We're seeing that same thing in Portland. I'm going to show it to you here in a minute. So looking at Portland, this is that same thing I was talking about. This graph goes back to 2016, and you can see we've got a pretty steady uptick in prices, and Portland prices really started to jump up about June, July of 2020, and then we're seeing that really across the nation where things were fairly level, and then we're seeing about a 7% jump from about June on prices. So let's take a look at what the experts are saying. So you can see we've got a heated housing market, at least in terms of price. And what we're predicting, this is from Lawrence Yun, the chief economist at the National Association of Realtors. He's thinking that this is going to be one of the strongest winters for sales activity. We're just comparing this winter to past years. It's still going to see seasonality that we see in the winter, but he's projecting that we're going to continue to see activity higher than we were at in previous years, and that's definitely what we're seeing right now. As we looked at those graphs here in Portland, we're running about 30+% compared to where we're at a year ago. So taking a look at 2020, this is from Danielle Hale, the chief economist at Realtor.com. She's predicting that 2021 actually is going to exceed 2020 in terms of sales volume, which is great news and maybe a surprise to people, but all the indications that she's seeing and other economists that I've been listening to are saying the same things, that they're seeing projecting a stronger 2021 than what we saw in 2020. And as you know, 2020 was pretty robust. This also by Lawrence Yu, NAR's chief economist, just talking about it seems a little reminiscent of where we're at in 2016, leading into the housing bubble. But his response is there is no comparison of where we're at now versus where we're at in 2016. And what he's talking about here, remember, go back and take a look at that graph that I showed inventory. When we were headed into the housing crisis of 2006, excuse me, we had a fairly high level of inventory, and it also was being fueled by a lot of bad mortgages. People were doing adjustable rate mortgages, stated value mortgages, stated income mortgages, and that really caused a mortgage crisis. Today, we're in a very different situation. We've got extremely low inventory, and most lending products out there, most mortgages that people are getting are 30-year fixed. So it's a much more solid type of lending than what we saw in 2006. Is there going to be a wave of foreclosures? Unfortunately, there may be some foreclosures, just due to some people's circumstances that they've been in. There's, protections in place. And if you want to talk more about those protections, if you're in a situation like that, give me a call. I'll be happy to talk to you about it because there are some protections for sellers out there, homeowners, that may be in forbearance or be having some financial issues, things you can do to ward off a foreclosure. But we may be seeing some more foreclosures in the market. But just based on the level of activity in the market and the low inventory, what we're expected, what will happen, again, this is from Lawrence Yu, is that the market will absorb those foreclosures, that they aren't going to be a drain on prices. Banks aren't going to go out and sell these at below market prices right now. There's no reason for them to do that. So even if there are some additional foreclosures, they're going to hit the market and they're going to be absorbed pretty quickly in this low inventory situation that we're in. Kind of switching gears here a little bit, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more just about buying, and we've got a lot of resources available to you. A big job that we have as realtors is being your coach, being your expert, and helping you with information, being your teacher. And you can check out some great resources we have out on our website. We've got a great video out there that talks about the home buying process. So if you kind of are interested in what's going on and you want to learn more about home buying, but maybe you just aren't quite ready to make that step and pick up the phone and call us, go check it out online. We've got some great resources that just talk about the process itself. This video does a great job of taking you from starting that very process of looking online to where you get keys, and it's going to walk you through all the different steps. It's going to walk you through how, as agents, we will help you along the way. So check that out. You can see it either on our webpage on the About Buying tab, or you can check it out on our YouTube page. It's Gile Group on YouTube. So check that out. Would love to talk to you in person, but this is a great way too, just to kind of get your toe in the water and check it out and learn a little bit more. Got questions about the economy, things we're talking about here today, real estate in general, your home specifically? We'd love to talk to you. Give us a call or send an email at askgilegroup@gilegroup.com. Check us out on social media. We're there all the time. We're posting information about the market. We're posting information about things to do in the local area here in the Portland metro area in Tualatin. So great resource too for information. We'd love to hear from you.